someone who from the very beginning has opposed the war in Iraq. So it gives me great pride to present to you this morning United States Senator Barack Obama.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. America is hungry for change. America is desperate for a new direction. People want to turn the page on a politics in Washington that has not met the challenges that we face as a country. We know what those challenges are. We've got a healthcare system that's broken and bankrupting families and communities all across America. Not only are we paying $3 and change for gas, but in the process we're sending billions of dollars to some of the most hostile nations on earth. We're funding both sides of the war on terrorism, and in the bargain, we're melting the polar ice caps and fundamentally changing the climate of the planet. Then we've got a foreign policy that is in as bad a shape as it's been in a generation, based on a war that should have never been authorized and should have never been waged, a war that's cost us $500 billion of lives, a war that has made us less safe and fundamentally diminished our standing in the world. And that's before you get to Scooter. They want to believe that they can be for something, not just against something. They want to believe that America can still come together with a sense of common purpose and a sense of higher purpose, that we can overcome our divisions of race and religion and region, and affirm that we are the United States of America, that we have the capacity to solve any problem when we recognize that we're in this thing together. You're not on your own. If you're a child who's poor, that impoverishes all of us. You're not on your own. If you're a mom who doesn't have health care for your child, that makes us all a little bit sick. You're not on your own. If you're a veteran who's homeless because you didn't get the services that you deserve, you know, that diminishes all of our patriotism. You're not on your own. We're in this thing together. That's what America's always been about. Mutual responsibility for each other. If what you mean is, have I been in Washington long enough just to spout the conventional wisdom, I don't think that's what the American people are looking for. But what they are looking for is leadership. Somebody who's willing to stand up and advocate on behalf of folks who are having a tough time all across this country. That's something I've got experience doing. That's something I'm willing to do. I said increase fuel efficiency standards on cars. We can save the equivalent of all the oil we import from the Persian Gulf. Imagine what that would do to our economy. Imagine what that would do to our environment and what it would do for our foreign policy if we freed ourselves from dependence on foreign oil. It would transform America, and we can do it. The technology exists right now. The infrastructure that is going to make us competitive, if we are still spending $275 million every single day on this war in Iraq. That is money that we need to be spending in Iowa. That is not money we need to be spending in Iraq. I mentioned I was against this war from the start. And it's true, because I anticipated that this war would make us less safe, that it would fan the flames of anti-American sentiment, that we would not have a clear exit strategy, that it would cost us billions of dollars and thousands of lives. And you know, I recognize that sometimes it's discouraging. There's been a lot of conversations lately about what do we do in Iraq. We don't have good options in Iraq. We have bad options and worse options. Political solutions to the problems in Iraq. And listen, let's admit that there are risks involved in such a strategy, that we could end up with spikes in violence in Iraq. But that's why it's so important for us to couple a phased withdrawal with the kind of diplomatic surge that is so necessary. You know, it is absolutely critical that we are talking to the Iraqis, but we're also talking to the entire region about how we're going to stabilize the Middle East. Now, we got in a little debate this week. Some of you may have noticed, me and one of my colleagues, about the whole idea of diplomacy. And I was called irresponsible and naive because I believe that there is nobody that we can't talk to. We've got nothing to fear. As long as we know who we are and what we stand for and our values and our ideals, that I am absolutely confident. I am confident that we can go before the world and talk to the worst dictators and tell them, we don't believe in your values. We don't believe in your human rights violations. We don't believe in you exporting terrorism. But if you are willing to work with us in a better direction, then we're willing to talk. We shouldn't be afraid. JFK said that, you know, we should never negotiate out of fear, but we should never fear to negotiate. Right. And that is a basic principle that has been lost over the last 6 years. And Washington conventional wisdom seems to have forgotten that basic principle. And that's part of the reason why our standing in the world has diminished so much. Because people think that the United States wants to dictate across the world instead of cooperate across the world. Right. And when we start sending a signal that we are ready to engage in serious diplomacy, then we've got the opportunity to stand before the world and say, we're back. America's back. I want to stand before the United Nations and say, we are back, and we're going to lead not just with our military, but with our values and our ideals. We want to lead to deal with terrorism and nuclear proliferation, but we also want to lead. We also want to lead in ending the genocide in Darfur. We also want to lead in bringing an end to global poverty. We also want to lead when it comes to building schools in the Middle East that teach math and science instead of hatred of America. And while we're at it, we're going to close Guantanamo. And we're going to restore habeas corpus. That's how we stand tall. Now, we don't lose the propaganda battle by meeting with people. We lose the propaganda battle when we forget who we are and what we stand for. That's how we lose. And in this war on terrorism, as President of the United States, I will do everything in my power. I will be thinking every moment of every day about how to keep you safe. But I'm going to make sure that I do that by fighting in the right battlefields, by fighting in Afghanistan and Pakistan where Al-Qaeda is resurging, instead of the wrong battlefield, and by fighting for the hearts and minds of people around the world. Because that is our greatest strength. That's what makes us the last best hope on earth.
That's how we'll bring an end to the Iraq War, by all of you standing up and saying our voices are going to be heard. We want this change in America. We want it now. And if all of you join me, I am confident we will not only win an election, but we will transform a country. Thank you very much, Des Moines. Thank you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.